Aitsquile, Quanstanat Senasnat. Good day, friends and relatives. Siam Nesjalacha Siam. It's good to be here today, Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. Here we are, our ninth episode for Children of the Setting Sun Productions, One from the Heart. We are happy to be here today and thank you, each and every one of us, for joining us. And today's discussion or topic will be about what does it mean to us as Indigenous people, um, not being able to gather and celebrate who we are. And we have our relatives on show tonight. We will have Ben Covington open us with a song this evening, and then we have Honorable Deborah Lacaniff, representative for Washington State, and our relatives, Joe and Lana Johnson from Lummi and Nooksack, and our dear friend from Puyallup, Nancy Shippentower. And we invite you to be a part of our discussion this evening. If you have any questions, please let us know through the comments and the notes there on your messenger or there on our page where this is being broadcast. So you're more than welcome to share with us what is on your mind and how this has been impacting you in your life related to not being to gather as who we are as Indigenous people. So we thank our guests this evening, and I would like to ask Ben Covington. He is an honorable veteran, and we welcome him in his song and voice this evening to open us. Ben, please.
Hey, Sam. Thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for asking me to sing this song tonight. I would like to send my love and my prayers to everybody out there. We sweat last night and offered up a lot of prayers for all those that are sick right now, asking for protection for all the people of Turtle Island. The song is from the Untitled family. I love you and thank you.
Thank you, Hishka.
Oh, oh, Peace.
Hishka, Ben, and thank you for opening us this evening for One from the Heart. As I'd mentioned, this edition is about who we are because in our gatherings, and a part of us is the fact that we love to gather. we miss our gatherings with our people. And some of the things that we are experiencing right now are gatherings such as the stick games, or preparing for our war canoe races for the season, and practicing for canoe journey, or the Coast Salish gatherings that we just have to gather. Part of that is the round drum or the powwows. These are just examples of a few of the things that we are experiencing and processing at this day and time. So here we are to share how that affects us, and how do we process and cope. What are some things that we have learned that we may appreciate during this downtime? And what are some things that we want to get back to? Because when we gather, this is important to our spirit and our soul and the legacy that we hand down to our children. So we'd like to begin this evening with Deborah Lacanoff. She's Tlingit, and ask her uh, how she is coping with this and how she's dealing, and are there any key factors that are involved with how she's doing this. Hi, Deborah. Please introduce yourself. Thank you.
It's hello, Candace. It's good to
Hi.
see you. It's good to see everybody here and my friends to the north of me. I'm coming from Samish Bay. You can see my backyard. It's low tide. The table is set. My neighbors, my colleagues, my coworkers, my campaign team, my family is outside feasting right now on clams and shellfish and all of the good habitat that's out there. I am surrounded by new friends and old friends and young friends of seagulls, eagles, little birds, herons. The little sea urchins come up. I'm living in a quite a blessed place that keeps me strong every day. Being Tlingit from Southeast Alaska, I'm originally from Yakutat. My dad's from St. George and the Pribilof Islands. I am surrounded by my resources. I'm surrounded by a healthy environment. I'm surrounded by the things that build my bloodline of who I am and where I come from. When the tide is out, the table is set. I am part of the salmon people. I am part of the people of the shoreline. I am one in the same with the Coast Salish people whose territories and lifeways that I live in down here in Washington State. You know, as we talk about that time of being alone, uh, whereas I don't have my family to hug me, I don't have my friends and my people who have been with me for the last 15 years, Swinomish. Um, I am I am quite grateful for the animals that surround me and keep me strong. My my time has been surrounded around this little kitchen table, learning how to be a Zoomer, similar to being a
Right,
Facebooker, a
right.
tweeter, and everything else that comes along with today's technology. I have that opportunity here today to be able to talk with all of you. Um, you know, Candace asked me what really is quite sad for me as a Native American woman and a Native American being part of that lifestyle of gathering. Um, I see the heartfelt community members within this Coast Salish territory who have lost their loved ones, where you're not able to go and attend, which is so natural for us to be part of the community and the loved ones when people bring home their new babies that are being born. To those that we lost and pass over to the other side, we're not able to gather then. Um, to the times when we would be beading together, we would be carving together, we would be gathering cedar, we would be laughing with one another. I miss that very much, and it's hard, but I know that the time that we're spending here alone gives us time with our family. It gives me time with my daughter Emma. Um, one of the things that Candace, you asked that I'm loving the most is sitting at this kitchen table with my beadwork and having my 16-year-old daughter sitting across from me. And there's nothing to be said except the quietness of the birds in the water and her and I beading and sharing stories and laughing, or sometimes just sitting quietly. And those are the precious moments that I'm regaining that I wouldn't have been able to do. Honestly, those of you who know me, I run to be still and enjoy that time with her. So Candace, that's what I'm learning while I'm working through this alone time. Uh, but it's also a little bit of loss that I'm missing of being around people who look like me, laugh like me, and my community of Coast Salish people that have called me little sister at times, called me auntie at times, and who've laughed with me when I most needed it and cried with me. So thank you, Candace, for asking that. And it's really great to be here with all of you.
Thank you so much for sharing how you're processing this situation and the importance of how it affects us through those gatherings, because we love to gather. And when we gather, we more often than not, we break bread, we share story, song, and dance. And in that absence, we have a lot of quiet time and a lot of time to ourselves. And I really appreciate how you share getting back to some of those basics that you grew up with, and how you are sharing these teachings with your dear daughter, and how meaningful it is, because we are living in a fast-paced society, and we look at something like this that really made us slow down. So it's important to know and understand that uh, you, as our representative, share similar stories on how you are processing. So thank you so much for sharing that. And um, um, if there's anything else you'd like to add, throughout this discussion today, please share your input and your feedback. Something else might come to mind, but I would like to introduce Joe and Lana Johnson and to ask them to share a few words about how they are processing as a young couple, family, role models in our communities, and often travel back and forth from Lummi and Nooksack. And how does this affect your family and your family values, and even your work ethics, but most importantly, the teachings that you hand down to your children and the examples that you are in our communities. Joe and Lana, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joseph Johnson from Lummi and Nooksack. I want to first of all thank you, Candy, for taking the time tonight to let us all sit together and share and bring out words and really relate to each other on this level. Through the technology we have today, keeping our distance. The big topic with how this is affecting us. As you heard Deborah say, slowing us down, and that's something that my wife and I have talked about for years. Geez, what would it be like if if we didn't go straight from our winter gathering straight into our canoe season as we do? Soon as the last drum beat is done, our feet are in the water, and we don't stop. And it's looking back at it, I kind of wished I didn't know that feeling now of what it's like to take a break, because all we think about is, when can we start gathering again? When can we come together as a crew and a canoe club? And even just having family dinners has been a challenge.
Mhm.
You know, one of the things though that our people are so resilient. We're going to take this, and I think it's going to strengthen our beliefs and strengthen our values and who we are as Native people, with all the different gifts we have that bring us together to allow us to gather. You know, you've mentioned the bone game, the round drum, the canoe journey, paddling, all
Right.
of that. We're gonna know not to take those things for granted, and I believe we're gonna come out of the shelter in place and out of this pandemic stronger.
Yes, definitely. Lana?
I just want to thank you for this opportunity and allowing us to join you with this work that you're doing. We've done a lot of projects with Children of the Setting Sun, and Daryl has worked really closely, and his team has worked really closely with our canoe club. And my dad always gives a lot of credit to Daryl for teaching him how to skip the war canoes, and a lot of Daryl's teachings are shared with us through my dad. So we're always so thankful for Daryl and the work that he does in our communities throughout Indian country, and always inviting us to partake in those. You know, it's such an honor to work with all of you and just share a little bit about who we are and where we come from, and our values. I was just talking to my sisters about, you know, the topic of how we gather, and we were discussing how as mothers and as daughters, and how hard it is, you know, when our souls just want to physically be together. And we've tried other avenues like the Zoom, like FaceTime, you know, just trying to check on each other and check in with each other, and how are you doing, you know, what's going on, sharing recipes. I've learned a lot of different recipes. I'm not much of a cook. Joe does a lot of the cooking, but
You should.
just trying to have the time, you know, to cook. Joe talked about the transition of the change of season, and for some of our people, that change of season is hard, you know, to go from winter to spring, and that time in between, that I guess that idle time, that's sometimes difficult for our people. And my dad always talks about that change of season, and sometimes it's difficult for couples, it's difficult for parents, it's, you know, really, really challenging, and we have to be mindful of that. So going from big house to paddling, we don't really ever have that idle time. So for us, this was, you know, really challenging to learn how to slow down and to appreciate our time as a family together, and to be able to cook and sit at the table and eat together with our children, and really slow everything down. And that's been a blessing, you know, for us and our kids. And um, with coping, Joe and I have still tried to, you know, maintain running, going out and enjoying this beautiful weather, um, trying to stay physically fit. I still work every day, so, you know, learning how to work from home, and I still go into the office, and I really commend everybody that is all of our essential workers out there, you know, our providers, our health providers, and our nurses, and all of the frontline people in our communities that are doing everything they can to service our Lummi and Nipsac and Swinomish, you know, all of our tribal communities, and us as tribal leaders have been on calls nonstop, and trying to balance our schedules and stay on top of everything and be part of the conversation and the solutions. And, you know, it's challenging at times. And so I really commend all of our tribal leaders for the work that we've all done collectively together for our communities. And but right now for coping, it's been really amazing and a blessing just to kind of, slow down. And even right now, it's so beautiful out and we get to sit and chat with all of you. So thank you for this opportunity.
Most definitely. So it's important to convey that, in all fairness, what you have shared, both of you have shared, is the essence of the small things that are the most meaningful to who we are and what we share with our families. And in that absence, we have had was forced to slow down and to have the patience, I guess, with ourselves through all of this. And I know for myself, it's hard for me to sit still and not be out and about, seeing and looking for things I can get into or things that can help with. But and for me myself right now, what I guess I could share what I'm going through is this time of year always reminds me of softball. And when I was growing up, we had a lot of competitive Lummi teams, co-ed and women's, and it was just that time where we would um, start to get ready for the season and look forward to all of the res tournaments together. And that's what I reminisce about. So it kind of brings me back on things like that. I would like to welcome Ron So. He has joined us this evening as a audience online with us tonight. And welcome, Ron. Hope you guys are all doing well, you and Danita and the family. Next up, I have, and thank you, Joe and Lana, for sharing
Thank you.
those important, valuable teachings that you share about what it means to you in this time of slowdown. Nancy, how are you doing this evening? And thank you for answering the call in such short notice, as you had shared with us prior to tonight. You got the phone call. You got the phone call from Daryl. Said, "Hey, do you have some time? Do you want to be on my show tonight?" So I just want to share with you, you're not alone.
I think he does that to everybody. Just calls, hey, you're on in 5-10 minutes. And there's no time to do the makeup or the hair or anything. You just
But I do know, Nancy, that his friendship with you is very important to him, and we really appreciate the time that you have taken to share with us this evening. And we hope you are doing well, you are staying safe, and we'd like to know, how are you handling this gathering time, which defies us as who we are as a people? So please share with us, how are you coping?
well, I've been doing the Zoom meetings. We're negotiating with the state, and I my kids and grandkids FaceTime me. I have great grandkids, like 7 of them, and so I get to talk to them every other day. And it's kind of sad because we missed out on birthdays, we missed out on things. Here's some of my great grandkids right here. You can see
Oh,
them.
oh, beautiful. Oh,
Yeah,
blessings, blessings.
and I've been making medicines for people in my family. This is one I made. It's honey and bear root, and it helps with the lungs. And then the Princess Pine, we went and gathered some a few days ago. We got up early, and I just had to go up there and grab some because I ran out. And so I took two of my granddaughters. One lives with me, and we went up there and I showed them what it was. I said, one day you're gonna have to come up and get this medicine to help your people. And then I've been teaching the granddaughter that lives with me how to drive, which is an experience. She's doing pretty good. But other than that, I'm a people person. You know, I like to see people. I like to give them a hug and, you know, tell stories and share, you know, what I grew up with, like I did with children as setting suns in their book when he called me up, said, Nancy, we're on our way. And I thought, yeah. And he shows up and I had this t-shirt on. And I said, wait, let me go change. Let me go change. They said, no. So we're just going to interview you right here, just like this. And they did. I guess I kind of like that because it catches you. Like you don't have time to do all that. You just, you know, they catch you unexpected and wow, here you are. You know, I've been like really going through memories, and I had uncles that were, my dad and uncles were linemen. And I was telling my cousin, I remember every time I had electrical problems, because my dad had died since then, that my uncle would come over and fix it. He would fix everything in my electricity because he was a lineman, general lineman. And then went down to the Nisqually River and got some sand for my fire pit. So when the moon came up, I could go out and, like everybody else did, go out there and say a prayer for all our people, for all of humanity, I guess, for humanity, because, you know, we're all affected like this. And like, there's no skin color, you know, there's no size, there's no description. It's going to hit you. It's going to hit you no matter who you are. And so I, you know, went down and sat by the river and thought about how we used to have so much fun there. I was telling my granddaughters, yeah, we used to come down here and swim and we'd eat off the land. Like we would walk up and down the river and pick sprouts. They call them sprouts, and dig up turnips, and then we'd swim across the river to the apple tree, the orchard over there, and sit up in the trees and eat all day. So we actually lived off the land when we were little. And that's the thing that I think bothers the kids today, is they don't know how.
Right.
They don't know how to live off the land. They don't know how to put food away. And so I put a lot of food away because that's just what I was taught from when I was young, with the prophecies, the Hopi prophecies, and with listening to other elders talk, because I grew up like that in spiritual unity conferences, and they would always talk about this time. I didn't think I would live to see it.
Right.
And here it is. And so I've always like been put food away, and like you just missed my granddaughter running in and grabbing a big bag of rice and some vegetables to take to her aunts to cook. So, you know, they can come here and get what they need because I will have it. But I share my medicine with everybody. And it actually went all the way up to Macaw. Mary Hunter's grandson uses it. And so I think it's important, like right now, people are sharing medicines, they're sharing stories, they're sharing videos of what they're doing. And I'm sorry, I hope I'm not bothering you by walking around.
No.
But anyway, I think having these kind of historical moments that the children in Setting Sun is doing will be really good for the future when they look back on this. But you know, the last major catastrophe we had, I think, was when Mount St. Helens erupted. And that was in 70, 80, no, 70, 70, I want to say 77.
Hmm.
And, you know, when it was falling where I lived at, it felt like you were having a heavy snow is what it felt like, what it was. And then we had earthquakes after that. Like you could see the land roll. It looked like it was just rolling like the ocean. The land would roll. Those are the little earthquakes that came after that. So I don't know. I guess I've been preparing since I was young to do this. But like my sister called me up, my oldest one, because I'm a panicker. I panic.
Hmm.
I don't think I panic. And because when Mount St. Helens went up, I panicked. I went up to the store and I bought everything. I spent my whole husband's paycheck on everything.
Hmm.
And my sister said, "What's wrong with you?" And she goes, "You need to knock it off. You're scaring everybody." Well, I didn't care. I was scared myself. And so anyway, when we got home, she went over and told my dad what I was doing. And my dad is Don McLeod. And he come walking over and goes, "What's all this, babe?" And they had just invented Mr. Coffee and had coffee filters around my kids' mouth. And they were little kids, like
Right.
4, 2, and one was just born. I had coffee filters around their mouth. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "You need to relax." And so then he would talk, he'd talk me through it every time I'd be. So my sister said, "Did you panic?" I said, "No." And she goes, "Did you stock up in food and stuff?" And I said, "Well, I have food." And she goes, "But I mean, did you really stock up?" And I said, "No." She goes, "Nancy, right now is the time to panic and go out there and buy all that stuff." But I didn't. I mean, I have food, so I didn't panic that much. But it's been something being home because I'm a people person. I like to see people. I like to hug my kids, my grandkids, my great grandkids. You know, we've had like 4 birthdays that we have yet to celebrate, and one of them turned 1 year old, and we could do nothing. But
Right. Right.
the creator's doing this for a reason. We just need to pay attention to life,
Right.
just to life.
Right. Right. Um, I agree with you when we've been told, we've heard these stories that days like these would come. And like you, never did imagine that we would partake in it or witness this going on in our lifetime. And here we are, it's happening to us. I remember when we first started processing this and what's going to happen, what are we going to do, and how is it going to affect us, and that little bit of that thought of it's not going to happen, and hesitation, I guess. But in preparation of that, and how you referred to how you prepared for it previously, Nancy, is um, it's it's just, oh, I don't even know what to say. But
Well, you know, the thing about it too is that your leaders are carrying this burden. You know, they're
right,
carrying that whole load because they have to decide now what they're going to do, what
right,
they have to do to protect the tribe. And I see that a lot, you know, that the you know, how I don't know how things are going, like people getting furloughed, people getting laid off, you know, people having to do less hours and picking up the slack of other people. And but and then the leaders in the meantime are dealing with state, federal governments and everything. And it's like, I don't know. They're the
Right.
ones that have that they're the ones that are going to have to. And it's sad because sometimes our people can be real mean.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, they have a lot of a lot of weight on their shoulders in taking care of our people. And
yes,
it's a burden and it's a blessing at the same time. And it's a big responsibility, but um, it's a shared obligation for our children because we have to do our own part in taking care of ourselves and our families. Um, but uh, um, so thank you for sharing, Nancy, about those teachings and how you rely on those to get you through this time, this point in time, and sharing that and exemplifying that to your own family, including your great grandchildren. Um, and whatever time that we can get with you is so much appreciated. And um,
well, I got all the time in the world.
well,
I'm not going nowhere.
your style and your expression helps us to understand as well. So even when you're walking around, it sends a message. It sends a message to me is that you've lived these you've lived this something like this before. So thank you. Um, I in reflection of part of what we have already talked about from the birthday parties and the family gatherings. I know somebody mentioned prior to the show this evening about how it affects us even when we lose somebody in our community. Deborah, you had spoke a little bit about that. And can you convey what you had shared with us earlier, and then we can all talk about um, how that affects us by how we take care of our loved ones that have taken the journey.
It's we're a people who gather when we lose someone. Our natural teachings are to surround them with love, um, to go to that person's house. For me and my community, my family members would come. I'm Raven in the Tlingit culture. My eagles would come. They would gather around us. Similar in the Coast Salish, when you lose someone, your families come to your house. Uh, they feed you. They love you. They give you the hugs that you need, that you miss so much, that we all talked about. They share the teachings with you. There are songs. There are just those quiet moments when you sit next to someone, when you know um, their loved one has passed on. And I'm watching through social media. I look to Phil Hamilton down in Muckleshoot, suffering the loss that he's had. I'm looking to loved ones to the north in Alaska, those up in British Columbia First Nations. This is our time when we should be together to say goodbye to those. My heart goes out to Tracy and Brenda and to Jimbo at Swinomish, and they're losing their loved ones. And it's that time that means so much. And for us to cope with that, I think we need to dig a little deeper, as Nancy was sharing. Uh, you take a breath and you acknowledge your teachings behind you, and you just know naturally the ones who are in front of you and the ones that are yet to come are with you that day as you say goodbye. I think Tracy James said it most wonderfully. She goes, she mentions in her social media posting, which is our way of which we're connecting. She said she knows that she'll be with her Swinomish community and her family. She knows, and she's feeling that love. watching Sally and Dano go through the health scare that Sally just went through, and hearing all the love and the prayers that are coming. It's what we do. I had a few years back before all of this happened. Chief Dalton Silver from Sumas Nation went through one of the most challenging, heartfelt crisis in his life. He was in the hospital. We had thought we were going to lose him. He's a young man. He was in his early 30s, and the Coast Salish people came together, and they all at the same time shared a drum song within their own houses, and we had a blanket. And those who could come together, we do this. We bless that blanket. And Chairman Clattisby from Swinomish, he blessed that blanket. And we sent it up to Dalton, who was in Stallo up on the Fraser, and we laid that blanket on him. And he said that he could hear the drums coming across the water in the Salish Sea, coming up through the river and coming to him and giving him that blessing and prayers. And today, Chief Dalton Silver from Sumas is still with us. It's the power of us as a Native American people, as Coast Salish, as Tlingit, as Aleut, as Navajo, as Crow, as we stretch across this Native American community. We know during this time, even when a sense of loss, if you just can find yourself, as Joan Lona put it, as if you be still and idle, you can hear those songs, you can hear those prayers, you can hear those teachings. You don't feel so alone, especially during those heartfelt times. And I think during this COVID crisis, I think back to that time of Dalton. I think back to that time of Squamish's Chief Gibby Jacob when he lost his son, and we sent blankets with Chairman Clattisby to the north up to his prayers. We dig a little deeper and we can hear those drums and we can hear the voices, and that's what keeps us a little stronger during this time when we're alone. We feel the hugs of our aunties and our uncles and our cousins and our brothers and our sisters that we miss so much, and it keeps us a little bit stronger every day. And that's what keeps me moving and going. So
Right.
Thank you, Candace.
Right. Thank you, Deborah, for mentioning that, because it's a very important part of how we take care of one another. And it's a difficult process to process alone and not our traditional ways. Thank you for sharing that. Is there anybody else that would like to share about how we're coping with that?
Oh, just making sure I'm unmuted. Yeah, about coping with not being able to gather during times of sorrow and heartache, and it was taught to me that whenever we gather, and I'm talking about us here in the physical world, when we come together, the other side is matching us and coming together as well. Wherever we're gathered, they're gathered around us. And through that, it comes a lot of healing and a lot of strength. You hear it said that you can go into a gathering and look around, and every person that's in that gathering, their ancestors gathered with your ancestors before, and so on back in time. And then the further back you go in time, the further ahead you think, like, our children one day are going to gather with your children and uplift each other. And that's where a lot of the strength comes from, is that belief that our ancestors were there, are there, have done it. It gives us, I always like to say, our old people were so smart in how they set us up to deal with loss and grief and change, because when we lose somebody, in a sense, it's a change, and we struggle with the acceptance of change. And until we learn how to accept something, that change is going to be near impossible to get over. You know, so right now we're going through a change, trying to figure out how to best follow what our ancestors laid out in dealing with loss, dealing with death in the community. You know, it's a change. And until we as Native people accept that, okay, right now, we have to do the best we can to hold true to our teachings and still move forward and ultimately believe that, you know, we're doing the best for each other. We're doing the best to honor, because when we come together, our ceremonies are all meant to appease the spirit. You know, that's what we're after, is we have to appease the spirit. And there's a little bit of fear that will sit in your heart, worry, did we appease the spirit enough? And in this case and in this instance, you know, it takes each and every one of us to believe and to say that prayer for each other, that all we can do is our best.
And I think our elders, you know, they gave us the tools to be resilient and to be survivors and to be forward thinking. And, you know, I think that we'll continue to thrive as a people after this pandemic. And I've seen so much of our communities coming together, donating food, donating handmade masks, you know, everything that it takes for our communities to move our people forward. And we've seen that, and we've seen the resiliency already in our people working together to take care of one another and not, you know, not even hesitating. And that's our teachings. You know, we step up and we help. We don't have to wait to be asked or told. We just do it. And I think that's really something that we could be proud of.
Yes. Yes,
It all comes from a place of love.
Mhm.
it is. It is. It's the spirit of the gift. When we speak of our ancestors, they're with us, they join us, and how do we appease them, as you would say, Joe, because that's our teaching. Anyone else that would like to share?
Years ago, I lost my dad to cancer. And then 5 years after I lost my dad, I lost my husband. They were 10 days apart. But we took care of them. Like, my brothers took care of my dad. And then with my husband, my son, and his nephews took care of him. But you know, both times when they were getting ready to go, they'd like see people and they'd talk to those people. I remember my husband was singing, he always sang Indian songs, but this song he sang, and my daughter said, I've never heard him sing that song before. And so when Dennis Banks came over, we were telling him about that song. He goes, that's probably his death song. And then he'd talk about the people. He'd say, we were on 11th floor of the hospital, and he was standing out. He goes, do you see what's out there? And all I could see was trees. He goes, you see that village with all those teepees? And those women are tanning hides, and over here the men are cutting the meat up. And he goes, but these two guys right here, you see these two guys? And I couldn't see this. He could though. He goes, they're waiting for me. They're waiting for me to come over. I have to go over there. And when he got out of the hospital, we did a pipe ceremony, and he told us, he said, I'm going over there. I can't be here anymore. I'm going back. And he died like 10 days later. But yeah, it's really something, because everybody I've witnessed who have passed on have talked to their people that were already over there. And so my dad used to say, you know, he goes, you have to keep living. You have to keep going. When the Creator is ready to call you back, He will call you back. But remember to make the best out of your life right now. And, make changes, but move, do something. Take care of your children, your grandchildren. You need to do that. You need to keep going. And so that's what we do. We remember them, we honor them, we give offerings to them. But Kenny Moses once said, because we would do feedings all the time, he goes, you cannot be doing this all the time because they have work over there they have to do. You can't be disrupting them all the time. They'll get angry with you. He goes, so you need to not do this all the time. And so then we do it like, I don't know, 3 to 5 years. We have a big table set and we do it. Send them gifts and we do it. But yeah, we had lost a young man. He left his home, went to the hospital. They told him he had it, and they wouldn't check him in. So he went and got a motel and checked in the motel so he couldn't give it to his family. That's what he did. Then we had a couple elders in the hospital, but both of them have been able to get out of the crisis zone. One of them's home, the other one's still in there. But all we do is just pray and enlighten people and bring laughter and joy and happiness to people. I don't know. That's what I think, or those are my words.
Yeah. It's part of the gatherings that are most important for us, to be there with our families and to take care of one another. And it's a difficult time. And like you had said, Nancy, it's but the living your life is so important that we can't forget about what we're doing. And we definitely had to adjust to these types of situations right now, and try to be there in mind and spirit for our relatives. So it's a very important question. It's an important conversation. But we do want our loved ones to know that they are not alone, because we love our relatives, and we're thankful for the teachings that we have to share with them. So
I wanted to ask you, really sick, and she wasn't expected to live, and her children were so upset that the doctor let them dress up and go in there and see her, touch her, just to touch her, to say goodbye to her. And her kids got all dressed up and they went into her room and they hugged her one last time and talked to her. That lady survived. After that happened, she came out of that sickness and she walked out of the hospital. Wasn't that something? I just thought I would share that for a minute.
yes, it's that power of presence that we have. It's a gift as well, because we know that when we are in other people's company, we can feel them, we can feel their spirit, and it gives us strength, just like being there for one another. So it's, I wonder how many people, and I feel for them, that don't have that type of connection, and an opportunity for us to reflect on that and keep them in mind as we go through this, because we may be halfway through it, but that means we've got halfway more to go. And we can't forget about the importance of the social distancing and the staying safe and staying clean and the wellness mask, the when you're out and about, necessary shopping, and only go out when you need to, because heaven forbid we wouldn't want a second round of this to hit us because we let our guard down too soon. And it's been known that this has happened before, but we just cannot jump the gun on returning to a way of life that we once knew. Um, it's just it's too important, and regardless of what the executive branch, how they feel about returning the economy, jumpstart the economy, it's not at that risk. That's not important enough to at the lives of our people and our communities. Um, so that was a good conversations tonight on why it's important for us to gather, and um, the meaningfulness of our gatherings and the values that of our teachings that remind us that we are resilient, that we are strong, and that we are in this together. I wanted to ask Ron So to share a few words and thank him for being our special guest this evening in the audience online here. And if you're there, Ron, will you please share a few words? Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that, asking me. First of all, I'd like to thank each and every one of you that are here tonight, taking a little time from your um, daily walk in life and to join us here at this special program that Children of the Setting Sun have put together. Thanking, of course, Daryl, and thanking to Nita for encouraging all of us as well, to all add our input in here as well. I think about the times that we're going through here now. I remember an old story from my late grandmother that was told to me by my mom when she was still alive. And they went through their own virus type situation. But this was a long time ago. And they had just gotten back from the long walk. My grandmother was a young lady when they took that long walk, and they were removed from Navajo country and heading to Oklahoma. And just before they got there, they were allowed to return home, and they were on their way back. And she said they lost a lot of people. She lost her grandparents that were there with them, and she lost aunties and uncles, and they managed to make it back all the way to Navajo. And to add insult to injury, they kind of had their own virus program that went along back in, and that was the introduction of blankets that were infested with a disease, smallpox. And so she said she was fortunate because when the blankets got down to them, they were all out. But they suddenly realized that people were dying, that their faces were all covered with marks and things like that. And they had a name for it. I can't remember what it was called now. But people understood at that time that it was not good. And so they tried to avoid people, and they did exactly what we're doing today. And of course, they had a different name for it, and it's not, and it was similar to self-quarantine. And so they had it back then as well. And she would talk about it, and she would also talk about the times that they were transporting dirt and stuff out of sites where they were getting uranium, and part of the dust they were breathing in contained amounts of radiation in it that they would breathe in. And so what happened as a result of that, she had issues with her thyroid, and so did a lot of other people. So indigenous people have always had threats of vastly different issues over the last many years, and we're just coming into our own. And I think traditionally we've always had this built into us as indigenous people. We already know what to do. We still have the feelings of living out in the country, living off the land, and knowing how to do it. Even though we don't practice it every day, in some way or another, it always comes back to us. And we have the ability to survive. We have the ability to move on. And yeah, our culture takes a hit. You know, your culture from mine from Navajo, yours from the coast here, as well as other reservations at a time of mourning. You know, we're always there. We're always drawn to the hurt and to the deaths because we're there to hold and bring everybody up, to lift them up. You know, the Sioux call it a death. They refer to it, and I can't remember the words in the language. I'll probably mess it up, so I'm not going to say it. But they always refer to it as many hearts on the ground. And I say that every once in a while in some of my posts, that people are going through a situation where there are many hearts on the ground. And that is a true statement because people feel that when a death has occurred, especially a loved one, that your spirit is gone for that moment, and you don't have it within you to carry on. And so, you know, they always refer to it as hearts, many hearts on the ground. And that is what we as indigenous people, from the families, the relatives, the relations all around us, we all come to the aid of that person and that family and to that group of people there to help lift them up, help bring them up, give them, as I've heard many speakers at Lummi say, you know, we're here to help lift them up. We're here to help them through this hard day, you know, and into the next. And you know, when we talk about that and we go through something like this, man, it is hard to be an Indian. It is hard, very hard. I've talked to some of my other friends out there on Facebook, and they're having a hard time. You know, of course, those that are especially in tuned with being cultural and practice it every day, you know, those are the ones that have a harder time, because that is where they gather their strength. That is where they listen to the family, where they listen to the needs of the people. And those are harder for them because they have no way to spread that out. They're stuck, you know, just like you and I in our homes, you know. Granted, we may venture out every once in a while to head to the store to resupply or something like that. But this has been exceptionally hard, and the number of deaths that have happened here at Lummi, you know, people have commented, you know, very few people showed up. And that's really hard on somebody, you know, when somebody passes and there's nobody there to help lift that hurt, help lift that pain. That is a tough thing. You feel like you're all alone. You're hurting. And how do you deal with that? You know, the Indian ways have always been good because they always, as they say, the people are always there to help lift you up. They're always there with a helping hand. They're always there with food or other things to help the family heal, you know.
Right.
And these are troubling times for all natives because we all are going through things like that. My mom and my sister are back at our ranch in Arizona, and they talk about having to shoo people away because they don't want to catch it.
Right.
And
Right.
already on the reservation, they're approaching 1,000 people affected, and close to 30 people have died as a result of it. And you know, the hospitals, we have some first-rate hospitals there in Navajo, not just one, but a multitude of them, and they're all full. They're all full of people that have contracted this virus. And it was like, you know, the feeling back then was, you know, we were not going to get this. It's not going to come here. Well, they were all wrong. And they're hurting just like everybody else now.
Thank
But,
you.
thanks for listening to me. You know, it's something that's important to me.
Right.
And, culturally, you know, it is hard on us because we've always had a way to deal with this, and it's troubling to know that we have to go through this and have to do it on our own.
Yeah.
We have the
Yeah.
ability to help. We have to learn now to help stand ourselves up and to take care of this issue on our own or with the family members you're gathered with right now. But thank you for
Yeah.
listening. Yeah, I turn it
Thank
back over to
you.
you,
Thank
Candace.
you. Thank you so much, Ron, for sharing that, because sometimes we don't hear really what is going on in other parts of um, the country, including our relatives on other tribes. But it's it's difficult. It's difficult to process, and I appreciate you sharing um, your thoughts and what's on your heart and your mind. But know that we are with you and your families, our families, through all of this. That's one thing we all can rely on as Indigenous people, is that we are not alone. We are in this together. So thank you so much. Ben, um, thank you so much for being here this evening. And I wanted to invite you to share a few words before I ask you to close this episode out tonight, but to share a few words about how you are doing in your family. How are you guys holding up? Your young family, your beautiful family. So,
Yeah.
Ben, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're holding up pretty good. Uh,
Good.
The boys are taking on new. My son Benjamin, he's trying out the guitar, and
Right on.
he's teaching my other son Jeremiah to play the saxophone.
Uh-huh.
Little baby girl's trying them both. You know.
Oh.
We're doing we're doing pretty good. You know, trying to keep them busy, keep our minds on the go. You know, we're also back. We tore down our backyard fence, and we're rebuilding a new fence, and
Oh,
our garden is starting to show life. You know, it's beautiful. You know,
those are good.
it's all stuff that you know, my grandmother and medicine men and women along um, my path have shared with me, and trying to pass it on to them. And
That's awesome. Those are great stories in the making for your children. Um, I was just thinking about your teachings and where they come from, and Aunt Pauline, definitely Aunt Pauline Hilaire. What a lady. Um, she always had great stories to share, and the teachings that she handed down to her children and her grandchildren.
I was
That I
I was just thinking about that too. Big hands up in Harshka to my relative Daryl. You know, because I was growing up in their age. I was traveling the entire West Coast, um,
uh
out to Hawaii, all over the place with
right.
my grandmother and the Children of the Setting Sun dance group. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
so we seen, you know, we were well traveled before we got into middle school. You know,
Right.
it
Right.
was really amazing. You know, um, really appreciate those times, and it's times like this that you know, make me reflect back to those words that grandma uh, given all of us grandchildren. You know, is
Yeah.
that in her words, you know, I was always I was always in trouble.
You're kidding.
Not that much, but she would always tell me, you know, and I always call her, or like from like states away, or you know, from down the street, whatever, you know, payphone status, you know, I'd always call her and ask, you know, just to hear her voice, and she, you know, in talking with her, she would be able to just know exactly what was going on with me, you know, and give me the
Intuition.
right advice, you know,
Right.
that I
Right.
needed. But what I'm getting at is that, you know, her bottom line was, she was always telling me, you're you're your own best lawyer. You're your own best um, judge. You're your own best friend. You know, your own best enemy.
Hmm.
Most important, your own best doctor. And you communicate with your body, your spirit, and your mind, and you can overcome whatever it is that's in front of you. You know,
Yes.
I know that Chief Overlooking Horse is out there in Sioux Country, and he's got those sacred fires going on right now. People are traveling, and they're praying. They're praying day and night. You know, and, me and my sons, we get up in the morning and we fill our canupas, our pipes, and pray to the rising sun. You know, we thank God for another day, and as the sun goes down, we fill our canupas and we say prayers as that sun goes down, and we thank Creator for the everything that was in the day and what's to come. You know, so,
Right.
just words from my elders there. You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful teachings, Ben. Thank you so much for sharing those important teachings. You honor that legacy of your grandmother. And I have to share one of my fond memories about Aunt Pauline was the first year that I was sworn in at Tribal Council at Lummi Indian Business Council. She was one of the elders that stood up that evening, and Auntie Pauline was always had that commanding voice and that personality about her, and she was always willing to put us um, in our perspective place, no matter where we were,
yeah,
because she was the auntie. She just
yeah,
took care of us and she wanted us to be just so. And one of those teachings, the first one on council for myself, was when she stood up there and she told us, there are 11 problems with this nation. And then boom. And then boom, she delivered us, our job and our responsibility, and that we got to do what we got to do and taking care of our people.
yep.
So I will never forget that gift of that
Yes, yeah.
swearing in from her, because it was very commanding and demanding, and gave us expectations at that swearing in that day, and I will never forget it. So and I wanted to ask you, if you don't mind, before you close, I do need a couple announcements. The Stomach Water Festival has been rescheduled to the end of summer, the 5th and 6th of September. And we want to know if Cree will be there to defend their men's and women's championship this year on the 5th and 6th of September. You guys always give us a good battle on those races. That's really what war canoe races are all about. So will Cree men's and women's be at this year's event?
We will do our best to try.
Yes, Simpson. And a couple takeaways from this evening's conversation there. We have definitely learned what are some things that we can live without. And then we have learned some things that remind us who we are through those traditional teachings and those crafts and hands and keeping ourselves busy. So, but regardless of what we are going through, these are really blessings in disguise. And we know that and who we are through all of these teachings, good and bad and difficult and sad and joyous. But please do not forget to take care of yourselves and the work that each one of you do. And thank you for answering the call this evening, and wanted to do really quick shout out to the rest of the team behind the scenes today. Of course, Satsamten, Daryl Hilaire, which I heard his name several times this evening. I should have put a limit on how many times we heard his name, but next time I'll know the wiser. Okay, Satsamten. And then we have our little young lady, Hillary Kagi, who's joining us this evening who's coming back from school and putting her expertise to work. And then we have Bo Garo. Thank you so much for being behind the scenes, Techie, you and John Carroll. And I know Mark Nichols was there somewhere, and Ellie and Natasha. And if there's anyone else I missed behind the scenes, thank you so much for what you do. And taking care of these very important discussions right now in this time of age. I want to remind you all to do what you can to get out the census, to participate in the census, because those numbers are very important. Getting back the formulas and the funding back to tribes and tribal people, no matter where we are. So don't forget the census, please. Thank you for being here this evening, Deborah LaCanna, Nancy Shippentauer, Joe and Lana Johnson, and Ron So, and Ben. Thank you for being here this evening to open us and to close us. But what I really wanted to ask you before you do close, will you do me a favor and sing the Johnny Cash song, the 10-second prelude that you shared with me this evening? Just 10 seconds. That's all I'm asking.
You actually
Johnny Cash.
you
I
stole
want
my
to hear it.
you stole my thunder.
No, I want to
You stole
hear
my
it.
thunder.
Come on.
I was
Come
gonna
on.
I
Gotta
was,
lighten the load a little.
I was gonna close with that. I was gonna tell everybody that this song was taught to me by my grandfather. It's a really old song.
Okay.
When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't never play with guns.
Woo!
All right. Yeah,
Very
yeah,
good. Very good. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, that was his audition song this evening. Thank
only
you,
for
Ben.
only for you.
Aishka.
Please, yeah. All right. Oh, what darkness down I what darkness down Sunday, behold, behold. Sunday, oh, oh,
Haishka, thank you for opening and closing this evening, Ben. Really appreciate that gift of song and the honor of being bestowed the beautiful songs. So thank you all for tuning in this evening and viewing this very important episode of One from the Heart. The Children of the Setting Sun, the legacy of the ancestors to keep the fire burning. Please tune in on Friday. TJ Adams will be the host, and the guest for Friday evening will be Honorable Leonard Forsman. And a shout out to Honorable David Bean, who Nancy Shippentower is going to recruit for us to attend on Friday, and Honorable Rudy Edwards from Swinomish. But
What
thank
time?
you, each and every one of you. Yes, ma'am.
What time?
Oh, same time, 6 o'clock. Daryl will
Yeah.
be in touch with them.
Okay.
Okay. But thank you all for being here this evening. God bless you. Stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you soon. Haishka.
Thank you.
Haishka.
Love you guys.